Hello, welcome back to Substitute Ed. My name is Nick Knox, and I have another video for you for my substitute teachers out there. I promised a video on your sub bag. So what I have is some recommendations for you on what to put in your sub bag to be prepared for whatever comes your way. And this is as true for your first job as 5 years later, still true for the jobs that I take now. So my bags have changed over time for sure. However, generally the stuff that's in them has not changed. So I apologize if there's a little extra noise in here. We are in the middle of excessive heat here in Michigan, so and we don't have air conditioning, or we have minimal air conditioning in our place. So I have a fan going. So I will show you the current bag that I have at this time. It is this fun quilted bag right here, and this bag kind of doubles for a couple different things. I also do Girl Scouts, and that was my Girl Scout bag for a little bit. And I was using a different bag, and I have a kind of a backpack that's like a purse. So obviously it depends on what I need to bring, but this is generally the bag that I use. It has like a front pocket. It's got a side pocket for like bigger things. It's got like one little pocket on the inside. Let me move this stuff so I can actually show you. So it's got like a pocket on the inside here. Very simple. Doesn't need to be anything fancy. You don't need to spend a ton of money on a bag. Not important. It's what's comfortable for you. You're going to be using it a lot. It's nice to have like a nice bright print or kind of fun color, mainly because there's not going to be one standard place that you get to put your bag every time you walk into a classroom. Every classroom set up differently. Generally, I try to keep the bag near like the teacher desk, or if there's actually a place to like hang things like coats and things, I might keep it there depending on how often I think I'll need to use it. But having a nice bright bag means I can see it. I can remember, oh yeah, that's where I put my bag, so I don't walk out without it, or I'm searching around the room to find it since I'm in an unfamiliar place. So, bag, have fun with it. I got kind of a plain canvasy bag originally that was like greenish gray. Green is my favorite color. It had lots of pockets. It was big. It fit a lot of stuff, which was great. I tend to the side of having more room than less because I put a lot of stuff in my bag. I like to be very prepared for whatever I run into. So teachers, the trope about teachers in large bags and carrying lots of stuff is very true, even for a substitute teacher, I would say, if you are wanting to be truly prepared. Inside of the bag, the types of things that I keep in the bag, obviously normal stuff you would keep like in a purse. If you don't want to bring a purse on top of that, I didn't for a long time. I just had the teacher bag, so I only had one bag to deal with. So things that you might need if you need like feminine products or your medications or whatever you would normally bring in your purse, wallets, IDs, that kind of thing. I have a little like fun little thing that I keep, and this is something I still do now. This has like personal items. So I have like my medications if I need them, things like my inhaler. I have ibuprofen and Tylenol because those are things you will probably need at some point. And if you're in a new school, you don't know anybody, it can be difficult to track down someone and say, hey, do you guys have some Tylenol, ibuprofen somewhere? School secretary, almost always the person to go to for those kinds of things. I keep like, I have a little like stress relief spray for those more difficult days. It also just smells nice. I have some Vaseline, in case I have some like really dry skin. I have some cotton swabs to use with the Vaseline. Chapstick of some sort is usually good. Um, Little pieces of makeup. So, some concealer, things like that if you need to touch up, or maybe you're like me and do things in the car on the way to places. So I try to fit everything kind of into one bag. And that way, if I don't bring a purse, I can kind of just grab this and go use the restroom or whatever, wherever I need to go. Or if I'm going to a staff lounge or something, I can just take my ibuprofen. I don't have to take things, the whole bag or whatever. So I highly recommend just getting a fun bag. Oddly enough, it kind of matches the bag I use now, but this is not from my original. So just makes it a lot easier to have all of those things in one place. And what I keep in it is different. It changes. I usually have mints in there as well, because goodness knows you never know what you're going to be having for lunch sometimes. So having Tic Tacs or something, or gum, those are also helpful. Things like tissues, little thing of your own tissues. Most classrooms have tissues in them, but in the weird off chance you're doing like random other things, you're doing kind of a floater sub situation where you are on recess duty or lunch duty or other things, you're not maybe always going to have access to them right away or knowing where they are. So I like to have like a little pack with me. As I said, I like to be prepared. And also like hand lotion, especially during the winter. I'm in Michigan, so gets very dry in those classrooms, and I get a lot of like cracked hands, and so always like having lotion. Again, if you're in somebody else's classroom, um they probably have a lot of this stuff, but you wouldn't necessarily know where it is. And I definitely feel uncomfortable using teachers' items. They're their items. If it's something for school purposes, sure. But I don't really like rummaging through teachers' desks trying to find things. So, I like to just be prepared. So be prepared. Another thing you will want to invest in that's kind of outside the bag, but kind of goes with the bag a little bit, is the quintessential stereotypical teacher lanyard. And this can look any way that you like. You can get a cheap one. A lot of people get these things for like swag and stuff. This is my teacher lanyard. I've had it for three years or so. I had a different one. Whoop, I bumped my chair. Let me fix my chair here. There we go. I had a different one. It was thicker. It kind of looked like this little mini one here, and it was fine. But I really wanted something different. This one's really cute. It's got a breakaway here, because especially if you're with the little ones, tendency to grab things or pull on things, or if you're carrying something, that pulls on here, it will just pop off instead of, causing you great pains. So that is something I recommend having. And this is one I bought off of Amazon, I think, because I really liked it. It's got colors that I really like, and it's got a very nice clasp, easy to open. I keep a whistle. This is something I bought at very start, and having the whistle super, super helpful, because no matter what position you take in a school, chances are you're going to have recess duty at some point. And recess duty is, you're watching kids, you need to let somebody know, hey, stop doing, or hey, I need your attention, or hey, it's time to go inside. I've had recess duties where their bells weren't synced up like with certain recesses. So the whistle was the only way that they need to go in. So I think this was $3 on eBay, or not eBay, Amazon. You know, super simple, does not need to be anything fancy. And you collect other things over time. It makes it fun. You can personalize it. I normally would have my door key card on here. As a sub, we have to turn those back in at the end of the school year, and then we get a new one when we come back. So they kind of like wipe them and recode them and that kind of thing. So that's where I would keep this. So I always have it with me. And if the schools you work at or anything like mine, that's also how you do printing. You can send stuff to the printer and print things off with that key card. So that is something that if you are doing long-term subbing, that you may have access to. If you're doing daily subbing, unless you're doing like a week's worth or something, chances are they may not give you access to those things, and you'll just have to connect with the secretary or somebody to help you with that. But having a lanyard, super useful. Some districts do give ID cards to their subs, especially if you actually work for the district. I know some of the southern states do that. So you may have an ID card that you need to put on here to identify yourself. And I work in a district that does not do that, unfortunately. So I don't have that, but I have my key card that gets me into the building because I do long-term filling vacancies and stuff. So definitely recommend. Definitely recommend. You'll want to have things like something to write notes down on. Obviously, there's probably paper somewhere in their room. This is either for your benefit of information I need to have, or maybe you want to keep a log of who you subbed for, what the teachers' names, what the grades were, what the subjects were, contact information for the school, because maybe you want to kind of create more personal relationships with those schools rather than just sort of picking randomly. Once you've subbed in a school several times, you know, you want to be able to kind of keep those doors open, and maybe they want to call you because you have a lot of openings and you really like working at that school. So having something obviously to write things down on, keep notes, how did the day go, that kind of thing. So this, and obviously things to write with. So pencils, pens, even like Sharpies is really helpful sometimes, just because, again, you don't know where things are sometimes, and it can be helpful to have your own because then you know where they are. When I first started, I had my own pencils, my own markers, my own crayons, my own, all in my bag. I got little packs of these kind of things and put them in my bag. And then I knew no matter what class I was in, I had access to pencils and all of that stuff that was my own. I didn't have to touch the teacher's stash of things. Depending on the grades, you know, crayons may not be readily available. They may not be somewhere visible. And when you get into those older grades where sometimes classes maybe aren't as helpful as some of the littles can be, at least that's my experience, you know, every class likes to test the sub, something you get used to. So it may be harder to know where things are that you need. So I always keep my very, very favorite pens on me, and this is something I've gotten really big on. So these are Tull. Oh, I have that upside down. Sorry. These are Tull pens. I hate to do the hand thing. That's so weird. And it's still not doing it. Okay, Tull. They're called Tull. These are my favorite. They are gel pens. They have highlighters and all kinds of stuff. I am not sponsored. I just really love these pens. And I recommend them for any teacher, anybody who does a lot of writing or enjoys writing, or these are just really, really nice gel pens. They're very comfortable to write with. They are very easy on the wrist. They are very smooth. So I always try to have a couple different colors with me. Just makes it easier to know I have what I need. I don't have to go searching for it in their classroom. I've also carried like a small set of scissors or those kinds of things. Because again, I've been in classrooms where I cannot find anything. I have no idea where everything is. And they don't generally give you a lot of time to go searching through the room to find everything. So, hopefully you have a teacher that has things set up and clear where things are, but some teachers don't get the chance to really put out a lot of information in their subplans, so you kind of have to be prepared to wing it a little bit. So that's where being prepared with everything you might need comes in handy. So those are things that I recommend having with you. Obviously, you also want to have things like your lunch, depending on what grades you work in and what schools. You may or may not have access to eating the school lunch. I work in elementary, so school lunch is not something I can easily buy. So I generally bring my own lunch. Some days that is better than others. So having a lunch bag, if you want to bring that on top of that, or just stick it in your teacher bag if your teacher bag is big enough. Feed yourself. Very important. I've definitely been at schools, been a sub. Somebody brought in something, or they were having a potluck, or some nice person gave them donuts. That's great. That is not an everyday occurrence, so be prepared with something to eat, including a snack for yourself. Obviously, not for the students. Not every teacher does snacks in classes. Just be prepared. Snack. Also, hydration, super important. This beauty here was actually a gift given by the school that I continue to work at previous year. But it doesn't have to be a Stanley, but hydrate yourself. I always bring my coffee. I bring my water. It's pretty standard. Most teachers in most schools are going to have a couple things to drink. Coffee is pretty ubiquitous. Water in a Stanley or some kind of, Stanley-esque thing. Pretty common to see in schools. Every teacher at the school I work at who worked there that year has the same Stanley. So hydrate yourself. It can be very, very easy to get caught up in things and overwhelmed and not stay hydrated, not use the bathroom, that kind of stuff. So please ask for help. If you need to use the bathroom and you need someone to watch your class, so common, so normal. Call down to the office, go to the bathroom. It can be easy to want to not to bother anybody, especially at the beginning when you're first starting. But don't do that. They expect that you may not be on the rhythm, and that if you need somebody to watch your class, there's usually somebody in the building. If not, some kind of floater person, the principals are usually happy to come and help. So, the things that I think that I brought that maybe other subs don't is something like this. It's a little file folder. As I taught, I would pick up worksheets. I would see what teachers had in their rooms, and I would notice kind of commonalities between certain grade levels or certain things that I could find online that I could have a copy of in here for an emergency. So let's say I'm stuck in a 4th grade class. It was an emergency situation. The teacher has not been able to make plans because they were gone. You're kind of stuck in there with not a lot of direction on what to do. Having worksheets of some sort, grade level specific, and you can fudge it, right? You can give a 4th grader a 3rd grader thing, or even a 2nd grader thing. So it still can be educational. You can still be there and get through the day and make sure everyone's safe, but you're not left with nothing. Generally speaking, a lot of times the principal will whip something together, so it's not on you per se to do that. However, I felt more comfortable knowing I had something just in case, because it does happen. I have had it happen that I'm given very little direction, no direction at all, or the direction I'm given is not something I physically can do. So they gave me on your computer, which some districts may not give you or may not have. I did not have like a teacher computer when I first started, and they gave me all computer directions of go on this site and pull up this and pull up that. I don't have one. So I sort of had to figure it out. And so I said, could somebody make some copies for me? At least then we have some activities. It can be artsy, craftsy a little bit. It can be some drawing, coloring pages for younger kids. It can be, but if you have a few things you can kind of pull from, that means in the most extreme circumstances, you're going to be prepared with something to occupy the kids' time. And that's what you want. As a sub, you don't want kids doing nothing, because that's when classrooms can become more difficult to manage and it can make your life so much more stressful. And it's already stressful enough being in a classroom that's not your own, that you don't know everything about, that are not your rules or your expectations. So you're constantly managing everything. You want to keep things as simple as possible. So I highly recommend something like this. You can also keep things like important information about the school, phone numbers, permission slips, whatever in these by school that you work at. So if you work at 3 or 4 different schools, you can kind of keep things organized. And depending on your bag, I had a really big bag at the time. I could just slip this right in. So depends on you. It has a nice little handle, so you could just carry it by itself. But if you are looking for things to put in there, I can recommend a few sites. I will do a separate video on that. We do have a TPT store, which is Teachers Pay Teachers. If you have never heard of it, you can just type in TPT on Google. It's called Teachers Pay Teachers. It is items made by teachers for teachers. So we have a store, very small store. We just started out. So I do have items that are great for you to use in our store specifically for subs. But you can find a lot of free items on TPT. You can search and look for free things, math, reading. You can search by grade level. So there's lots of great resources on TPT. I've used it a lot. You can pay for resources if you really want to pay for something, but there's certainly a lot of free stuff. So I recommend starting out, don't pay for things until you really start to figure out what you might need. It's just not good practice, although teachers do that kind of stuff all the time. So I will do a separate video with other sites and places you can find resources for substitute teachers or educators in general. And but do check out our TPT store, check out TPT in general. It's a great place to kind of see what's out there and start to familiarize yourself with kind of the expectations of what does a 4th grader learn? What does a 3rd grader, a 2nd grader, a kindergarten, what are they learning? Because it's very different, chances are, from when you were in that grade. It's also probably taught differently. So gives you kind of a way to do a little bit more self-education before you get started. So that is my recommendation for having something prepared. I also like to bring things like, Post-it notes, sticky notes, because I love to organize papers. Like if they give you a lot of papers, I like to take the sticky note, put the sticky note on it, and say, this is what this is. I collect the papers back. A lot of teachers will not say, please collect, or don't need to collect, or I'm doing this for a grade, or because every teacher is different. Some teachers don't grade everything that they give to kids. But they often won't say, please collect, or please don't collect. Please have them put it in their binder. Please. Those are things easily forgotten in plans. So I tend to collect all the papers back at the end. and then I will clip it, which I often bring my own clips as well. These little guys, they're just little clips. I have ones that have fun smiley faces on them too, which I leave for the teacher. They can have them. I'll clip the things together, put a sticky note on it, and then just say, math or whatever hour it was or whatever, just so that when they come back, it's organized for them. And if they don't want to keep them, they can toss them or hand it back to the kids or whatever they choose to do. But at least then I know they have what they need. And I also am big on leaving notes for substitute teachers. On my TPT store, I do have a kind of a glows and grows for a teacher on these are the things that went well today. These are the things that maybe didn't go so well. These are the students who were super helpful, really great. These are some of the students who needed extra support or really struggled today. Because that's very good for a teacher to know in future of how do I best prepare my kids for a sub. Every teacher's different. Every sub is different. And it's important for them to know how the day went so they can address those issues with their students on the next day. So obviously I want to put more glows, more goods than bads. But I've definitely had classes where the bads outweighed the goods. But definitely calling out those kids who did a great job, who were super helpful, who were kind and courteous and patient. And so those are things that teachers love to hear. Obviously, every teacher wants to hear that their kids were perfect. Chances are they won't be, because kids push boundaries. And when there's a new person, the boundaries don't feel like they exist. So I will be doing another video on classroom management specifically for substitute teachers, because it's a little different than what a standard teacher would do, because they build relationships with their students, and that kind of changes how they function in a room, whereas we don't get the chance to build a relationship. So we sort of have to come in ready with a few other tips and tricks. So I will be doing another video specifically on that. But on my TPT store, you can check it out. It's glows and grows. You can leave notes for the teacher on how things went, including your contact information, so that the teacher, if they have any questions or concerns, they can call you. And so that if they need to go away, they can call you and say, hey, are you available to cover this day? I have an appointment. Could you come and watch my class? Obviously, you know my class. I would love to use the same sub, because then the kids get used to you and it makes that day go by a little bit better when kids know what to expect out of a teacher. So some people like to do business cards for that kind of thing. It's an expense that you maybe don't want to do right off the bat. If you kind of start doing it full time and you're taking a lot of different classes and different schools and different, then it might be worth it just so you don't have to write that stuff down. But I feel like leaving notes is always beneficial anyway, because you're always going to have something to tell them about the day. Even if it's just, it went great and they were lovely and I'm so happy. Another thing that I like to do when I'm doing dailies or I'm doing, short, longer term, so like, a week or whatever, I like to leave a little thank you card. I clean up the classroom, I get everything organized, and then I love to say, thanks for letting me come and work with your class today. I can tell you from personal experience, having my own classrooms, it's home away from home. It is incredibly personal. It's incredibly important. Classrooms are very unique. Students are very unique, and teachers get very, very connected to their class because they spend hours and hours and hours a day, 5 days a week with their students, and then they spend the rest of the weekend thinking about their students. So I love to leave a thank you card to say, thanks so much for letting me connect with your students or work with your students. It's a joy for me to get to come into somebody else's space and work with somebody else's students and support you as a teacher and support them as students. So it's just a nice gesture that I think makes a big difference to how people perceive you as a sub, that why you're in it, and that you really valued being able to do it. It's something that takes time. Some subs don't have the time or don't want to take the time to do some of these little things, but this is always something that I really felt was important to me, to really thank the whole class for allowing me to come. So that's another option, a thing I like to keep. And you can buy a little, go to the dollar store and buy a little pack. They don't have to look like anything, and they're just blank on the inside, so you can write whatever you want. So that's another thing I recommend for your bag. Obviously you want to have things like your phone, any of that kind of important things. I like to label my things. So, if I have a pack like this, I might put, my last name or something, or my first name, or Mrs. Smith, whatever. Because chances are I'm going to be walking around writing something and I'm going to set it down. And then I'm going to realize later I left it in somebody's classroom. I left my drink in somebody's classroom. I do those kinds of things. We're humans. We forget things. So labeling things is kind of important too, just because then if it gets misplaced or moved or left, that you can call the school and say, hey, I left this thing in, Mrs. Thomas's room. Could you, if she finds it, can she bring it to the office and then let me know and I can come pick it up? Not usually a big deal. I probably wouldn't go through all of that for these, but I might for my favorite coffee cup or my Stanley or, my bag that has all of my important stuff in it. So, yeah, so that is most of what I would carry in my bag. There's obviously going to be other things that come up specific to whatever job you take. So you take a gym class, maybe you want to have a change of clothes, or you want to have shoes to change into that aren't your sneakers, or you want to carry your sneakers. It's going to be specific to whatever you're doing. If you're not taking a gen ed class or maybe a special ed class or something where it's very specific to a special or something, you may have other things you want to put in the bag for those eventualities. Or some people like to keep them in their cars, for just in case. I don't drive, so I walk to the schools that I work at for the most part. So, not always a possibility for me. The other thing I do recommend, that I wear every day is a watch. Being that not every pair of pants has pockets for a phone. And some schools are very anti having phones around or out. Having something like this that you can keep track of the time, which is very difficult to do as a sub because you're trying to keep track of a bunch of times that are not ones you are used to. Very important. So it doesn't have to be a fancy watch. This is actually not a fancy one. This is like a $30 one from Amazon. But you can add some alarms to it. You can keep track of the time, especially if you're not using this. One of the last things that I can also recommend just popped into my head, I didn't talk about it, is having hand sanitizer. Almost every classroom is going to have hand sanitizer in one form or another, but it's great to have on you, especially if you work with littles. Kids get sticky, messy, muddy, all of that kind of stuff. And it's very easy if you work in elementary schools, lots, to get sick. So I always keep a bottle, maybe 2 on me, so I have it, so I know where it is, because obviously classrooms are all different. They may not be as readily accessible, or you may be outside on recess duty or something of that sort. So that's about it for my recommendations for your substitute bag. It's actually really fun to put everything together. And I've certainly had other things. I've had math manipulatives that I've put in there, or other items that if you are interested in kind of hearing about more of that kind of stuff, let me know, comment down below, and I will take a look at that, and I can talk more about some of the things that I picked up when I first started for myself to have in my teacher bag, like math manipulatives and things like that. Those are obviously things that schools have, but I found it was difficult for me to find things in classrooms, and I just like to know that I had them and I could just whip them out and use them, no problem. So, but yeah, this is fun. Putting together my teacher bag was incredibly fun. It was really fun to find, you know, what bag works and have some personality with it and have some fun with it. I will go into more stuff that you could potentially put in your bag when we talk about classroom management, because there's some other things that you can add to your bag that may be helpful for classroom management. But overall, those are kind of the basics of what you want to have in your bag, ready to go for your very first day. Know that things can change, because that's the life of a sub. But if you have those kinds of items, you're going to be pretty well prepared for whatever comes your way. And so thanks so much for watching and for checking us out. Please do like and subscribe, share with other people. I would love to hear more from the substitute community on what needs the community has. I would love to do more videos, connect us all together. It's definitely an important job, and I would love to support those who are interested in joining. So thanks for watching. Have a great day. Bye.